This is one of the most special places in Wellington to me, the south coast of Wellington, facing onto the Cook Strait. And the Cook Strait is one of the world's great biodiversity hotspots.
So we're right here in the city of Wellington. We're right on the edge of the shoreline. So this is a marine reserve that's really quite close to where urbanites are.
Absolutely.
How connected are they to this place?
Very connected. I mean, it's 30-minute cycle ride right into the centre of the city. And people come out to the south coast to walk, to cycle, to go kayaking. It's a big draw card for people who move here from other places like I've done. And having the Marine Education Centre here means people know a little bit more what they're looking at. And we also need to use people's love of the environment. I mean, it's good for them, but also to motivate them so that oil and paint don't get poured into the drains, so that rubbish doesn't get thrown away, because it just comes out to the sea. And the more they know what's here and the more they love, the more care they'll take of the marine environment as well. Somebody who comes from the centre of a bigger city where there is not the same nature connection, I know how special it is for people who live in the city, and New Zealand is quite an urbanised society. 76% of people live in cities. It's really important to connect between the heart of the city and the natural environment on the land and the sea. Until you go snorkeling and diving, you look out and the sea looks beautiful and the sand looks beautiful, but until you get in amongst it, you don't appreciate the richness of the world. It's like another dimension. Anyone that lives near the sea should be able to enjoy that close connection, because after all, we are marine mammals originally. I've had an octopus come and touch my hand when I've been out diving, and again it's this connection to the natural world that's much bigger and older than ourselves that's important.
Is Wellington a biophilic city, do you think?
Wellington is absolutely a biophilic city. That's why I live here, that's why I've stayed here. It's a connection with the coast, the ability to wander in the forests, and the way that the birds, whether it's penguins or kaka, you can see them on a daily basis. You don't have to say, right, I'm leaving the city now, I'm going to nature reserve 100 kilometres away. City and nature are like this.
All of New Zealand has been affected by a whole range of introduced mammalian pests. These are all northern hemisphere animals that did not occur in New Zealand prior to humans arriving here. In fact, there were no terrestrial mammals here in New Zealand at all. So there have been a very large number of extinctions due not so much due to human activity as to the camp followers that we brought with us. So 3 species of rats, 3 species of stoats and weasels, possums, cats, dogs, goats, pigs, I could keep going, and the effects have been disastrous for particularly bird life in New Zealand, but actually the entire fauna and much of the flora too. Mammals are excluded from here by an entirely mammal-proof fence, which was a unique design created here in Wellington. A fence of about 9 kilometers encircles this whole valley of 250 hectares. It's a big volunteer operation to patrol the valley. There's always a risk of mammals coming back in. So in the immediate aftermath of the fence being built, we quickly had birds like tui and native pigeons, caribou, coming back into people's gardens, and those numbers are only growing. Other bird species are now coming in as well. In the past year, the number of kaka, which is one of New Zealand's native parrots, has come back in big numbers, and those numbers continue to grow. And so kaka are now a part of the life of Wellington City. I've seen them right at the edge of downtown now in parks there, just sitting in trees, looking around, doing the things that parrots do. And I can promise you people absolutely love that. It's inspirational when you discover that first kaka on your deck or savaging the fruit tree in your garden or whatever. It's a wonderful thing to have happen. We have a 500-year plan here. What's success? How do we know we'll achieve it? And do we have to wait 500 years? I think is something I once asked, and the answer is no. Success has already happened. We're 20 years into the project. We have a regenerating valley with no mammals in it. We have bird life returning not just to the valley but to all of Wellington, and bird life in abundance here in the valley.
Are there lessons for cities outside New Zealand, what you've done here?
Well, I think it's just, the lesson that's international is around the nature of the biophilic hypothesis. This shows, it's one of many examples of the ways in which people embrace nature and want it near to their city. There are always financial challenges to how you manage reserves like this. But the key thing is people want it, and we now have 90,000 people coming through here every year. Some of those are international visitors, most of them are New Zealanders, and I think there's no indication that that growth will not continue. We will continue to have more and more people, and at the same time we will inspire other sites. So you don't have to travel 100 miles or 500 miles to see something that is increasingly pristine. You can see it next door to you, really, in the city. When history is written about all of these, Zealandia will play a central role, but everybody, the really good things only happen because everybody embraces it. It captures the heart of the public, and that's happened.
We were fortunate the early town planning. Over in England they decided it was a good idea to introduce a town belt, which we still have today. So the City Council has cared for that since around 1873, and that's a protected inner area around 445 hectares, which was set aside to be a public recreation ground for the people of Wellington, but also for it was the concept of the lungs of the city. And so we've been able to take that concept and apply it to an outer greenbelt area as well. So the outer hill range, mountain range around the city is also protected and enjoyed for recreation and biodiversity values.
You just mentioned the town belt, the outer green belt.
Yep.
Is the blue belt the next iteration or the next?
Absolutely,
extension?
Absolutely. I mean, you talk about the vibrancy of the city and people will immediately think of the waterfront, Wellington waterfront. You know, there's been great improvements. It was essentially a big car park area, 20 odd years ago, whereas now it's an incredibly important public space. So managing it for its recreational, ecological, cultural aspects is hugely important. The little blue penguins come ashore at night and nest sometimes under people's houses, which is perhaps not so desirable, but also in nesting boxes. Seals, I think you might have seen one today, dolphin in the harbour, orca, rays, and that's just the stuff I can see with my naked eye standing from the land. So how we connect people with that, we've talked about things like periscopes on the waterfront so people can see the life that's underneath their feet. So it brings greater meaning. When people can see something and name something, it means something.
It seems like everything here has the possibility of having some reference to nature, to animals, to plants.
Yeah, well, I guess I have. I was wondering about that myself, and whether or not we could do more in terms of showcasing our nature in some of our urban design projects. And then I kind of opened my eyes a little wider one day walking to work and noticed that our civic square area is full of natural features. Nico palms, which are native palm trees, instead of just boring old columns, they're shaped like Nico, or our bollards are shaped like fern fronds unfurling. Great sculpture in town, a fern ball, which is beautiful, and we've got wind sculptures as well to celebrate our wind, and dynamic kind of stormwater covers, natural kind of designs on them to help us think and remember about the streams beneath our feet. I think Singapore is referred to as a city in a garden, and Wellington in some respects is a city in a forest, a city in the bush.
It's been an amazing few days. We've gotten to know this very green city. In many ways, Wellington is my vision of a biophilic city. People are living integrated with nature all around. You walk along or turn a corner and there's a bit of wildness. A lot of it is designed. Very thoughtful planning going back on the original town belt, this U-shaped belt. You can see part of it in the background, Mount Victoria. When you walk around Wellington, look up and you see this amazing town belt, and then beyond it, an even larger outer green belt. And what's really impressive to me is that this is a city that isn't resting on its laurels, but is doing many things to imagine how to expand that nature and to further foster connections with the natural world. One of the most exciting ideas, I think, here is this notion of a blue belt. They're beginning to think about how those spaces can be integrated with the more terrestrial environment. So we have green belts, but a blue belt as well. So this is a city very much thinking about how nature is part of their lives, and it's everywhere here. One of the other really interesting things is you see references to nature in urban design features as you walk around, and I think that reflects the deepness, the deep connections that people have here to the natural world. And Wellington is embracing the concept of biophilia and calling themselves a biophilic city, a living city. So it's quite impressive, the things they're doing here.